Nice. Okay. So hopefully the internet will cooperate with us, and we'll be able to keep streaming live. But the show will be back in less than 3 minutes. Huh? Oh. Did you guys check the link? Did you hear it? I can't tell.
I can't. I don't have signal here.
Oh, they have Wi-Fi. City of Jacksonville. We will return in a few minutes. For those don't know much about the Multifarious Man podcast, here's the actual theme song that I created last year.
Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand. I'm the multifarious man.
All right, we're back. Here again, the Multifarious Man podcast and a BK thing called Beloved, the Beloved Movement Renaissance Saturday morning edition, live at D&G Deli and Grill at 233 East Bay Street, Jacksonville, Florida. Duval.
That's it, man. Shout out to John Lucas on the DJ, on the boards. Half of the spot, other half of the spot, John Lucas is DJing, keeping the music right, and then we're rocking out the podcast on the other side. So it's a good little vibe. It's about empowerment, people, and empowerment and interaction, right?
And a special shout out to Russ Aramenta, So Scenic Photography, who's taking some shots around the way that we'll post up on our website and Facebook links later on today. So, in the first segment, we kind of talking about the Beloved movement and a little bit about your background. But let's talk about something. About a few years ago, you sat down and you knew you wanted to give back. And I want you to tell me a little bit about the concept, about what you came up with and how you gave it out.
Yeah, the thing is, I was at a point where career-wise, everything was going well. I was rising. What do they say? Meteorically. Where I was 28, assistant vice president at an investment bank, and then I left that bank to go to another investment bank and be a project consultant. And the project I was on was for the largest hedge fund in the world. So I was facing off with a lot of power players, right? So at that moment, having that opportunity for myself, along with the money side, but having that opportunity for myself, I wanted to. I didn't want to hold the keys of success, just within. All right, I didn't want to be some old dude that, career is set and then he writes a book for $1 million, right? And to make more money, right? Like, I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to put it out, for free. I wanted to keep it real, and I didn't want to have restraints on my message. And so I felt the more real and raw that I put it, in terms of if you have an office job or, you know, the corporate setting, the more real that I kept it in the book, the more it would resonate and the more it would help people. And I didn't want to compromise that by, by officially publishing it. So the book is called Nobody Gives a Damn About Your Birthday. The title itself is something my dad told me when I was about 10. He's always he's always been the realest in the family, and so he never held back. And so I think what was happening was I was asking him where my birthday party was going to be at, or where whatever I was bothering him with, right? And he's like, son, nobody gives a damn about your birthday, other than your mother and your grandmother, right? And so he told me that, right? And I didn't realize the benefit of being told that at 10 until it it manifested in the way that I moved as an adult. Right? I don't move like anybody owes me anything. That's just the way that I play, right? So like friendships, associates, all of that, like nobody owes me anything, right? And so like I already keep that in perspective, and that enables me to spar in the business world and in the corporate world, right? And so that's where the title comes from. That's where the reasoning and the logic comes from. That's it.
So why was it so important to you that it be given away for free? That, what was that drive for, and what do you hope that people do with it when they get it in their hands digitally?
Right. Well, along the way, like the thing is, I would run into people. People would, be very deserving, right? So you'll run into people who, have worked at a place all their life, right? Or have given the place, the business or whatever, their all, and they would feel like they weren't rewarded. Or you would run into, instances where a person, would be a good person, would be, taken out of consideration for a promotion, or, get backstabbed, or, however it goes in the corporate world. Like, people were going, coming in honest, which isn't a bad thing. That's how you should come in, but they weren't getting the real tutorial on, how you really do this, right? Who's your friend? Who's not your friend? Who's an ally? Who's not your ally? Just self-preservation. So I wanted to put it out free. I wanted everybody to have it. And then I've been big on music all the time, so it's one of them things where I was listening to like G-Dep sometimes, Jay sometimes, so that's where the mood soundtrack comes, and so there's a soundtrack to go with the table of contents, and it has a nice little hip hop head vibe. If you listen to that, you kind of feel me where I took chapters, where I went at. You feel that vibe on top of the words.
So what's the feedback you've been getting from people you've been giving it to, and your two biggest fans, your parents?
Yeah, I mean, my parents loved it. You know, they're retired, so they you know, I don't. Well, I do know that, you know, that my mother definitely, you know, saw the power in the message. My sisters have read it, you know, and been able to take whatever they can take from it. You know, people that I don't, you know, that I don't know, right? Like online, you know, they've definitely, you know, benefited from it, from the content, and I think that people have been able to take what, you know, what the tools that they need and the jewels that I put in there and run with them, and you know, that's the important thing. I don't think there's anything in here that in the book that that people can't relate to, even if you don't have a office job or corporate job. The relatability is there.
No, I think that's important. I mean, you know, the same thing that, you know, we get in the corporate world, the, you know, the Harvard Business Review articles, the self-help articles, the 7 Keys to Success, all the different things, you know, the Franklin Covey series. That's what came to my mind immediately when you sent it to me, and you were like, yeah, man, I'm giving it away. But it's the information that's key, and taking it and putting it in a way that's relatable, which I thought was cool. And I could just, you know, picture your father telling you, it's like, yeah, man, nobody cares. It's like, you think you get in a party? Nobody cares about that.
The good part is that, and the part that John Michael's alluding to is like, he's been able to see me do some of this stuff. So if you don't know, like, you know, me and John Michael used to be co-workers. So he's seen me in action. You know, he knows what's real. He knows what's raw truth about it. Shout out Des. And he knows, you know, he knows, you know, as they say nowadays, he knows I went in, you know, no cap, right? I kept it real. He saw me use some of these tactics, and he saw where it got me.
Man, I like it, man. I think it's a good thing. It's always good to give back, because a lot of time people look at you kind of crossways. It's like, well, what are you trying to get out of this? And I think the cynicism that we have, I mean, it's everywhere. And when people see you handing them something, their first instinct is like, you know, what's your ulterior motive? And it's good to know that there's still a lot of people out there that the only ulterior motive is, I want you to learn something from it. I want you to take it and use it to build up your career. It's like, I don't need you to give me anything back. It's like, I got mine. And I like that attitude. It's like, I got mine. It's like, I help open the door. Somebody open the door for me. I'm opening the door for you.
Right.
You know, we can help each other, lift each other up. You know, I'm up on the wall. I'm going to pull you up over the wall instead of kicking you down so you can't get there.
And the thing is, even with this, even what we're doing here, like, you know, I'm not making a dime off of this. All right. Like, this is something I've put, you know, money into. And the money I put into was ironically, it's for the books. Right? Like, you know, I'm about literally knowledge, pushing out knowledge. And so, you know, Saturday morning, Jacksonville, downtown, we're in a central location for a lot of people. You know, you can come through, vibe, get a cup of coffee, you know, read a book, read a magazine. Like, this is free. This is free, and this is what I do.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things people don't think about. You know, even living in Jacksonville, there's so much available. I mean, here downtown, Bay Street, it's 25 minutes from anywhere in Jacksonville, from Orange Park, from St. John's, with all the infrastructure improvements they've been putting in, the new highways. I mean, I literally took me maybe 25 minutes to get here and pull up. It reminds me of a good deli from back in New York. Can get a nice egg and cheese sandwich. You know, you have the main, you know, Jacksonville Library is down the block on Duval Street. So
Right.
It's one of those things that you got to take advantage of what's out there. You know, Jacksonville actually has a pretty vibrant culture, but to have a place to come out, have a nice coffee, have a nice meal.
And the thing is, like, I have brothers that came out, like Roderick came from Tampa, okay? So, like, I have people who literally grew up here, who know, you know, what the movement's about, you know, who know where my heart's at with it, right? And who are just here for the culture, you know? And so, you know, that's the important thing. The important thing is that I knew that when I text Rod, like, I didn't have to convince him because he already knew what I was on. He already knew, you know, what this is about. I got people that know me here or know of me here, right? That you know, maybe they don't get it, right? And so that's the thing, man. When your heart's good, you know, when you push out knowledge, right? And when the movement is about knowledge, you know, you attract the people, you know, out that should be there, right? So anybody that's going to catch it is going to catch it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you're spot on. I think, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, you texted me and said, hey, you know, you still doing that podcast? You know, how about coming out and doing something together?
That's right.
And then a few texts went through. Hey, we got a DJ. Hey, do you know a photographer?
That's it.
And it just grew organically. And to be able to put something together, and I mean, even for me, it's expanding on what I do. I mean, I'm used to reporting my podcast in my house, mixing it down, uploading it. Most of my episodes are about things that I enjoy: books, movies, music. You know, occasionally I'll have a artist come on and interview them, which is something I've always wanted to do. You know, a musician, local musician, a couple of friends I grew up with. One's an actor, one's a writer in Atlanta, one's an actor in LA. And I was like, why not?
Let's roll.
You know, let's talk about the things we enjoy. Now this is something I think is good. I think it's needed. You know, it's nice to have a nice little live show here in Jacksonville. You know, this is the city we live in. Why not put people on the map? You know, there are a lot of artists out there, a lot of musicians, there are a lot of writers.
Right. But a lot of times, even with that, like the money and the politics gets in the game, right? To where, you know, we do have a lot of talent here, right? But, you know, sometimes if the motivation is, you know, if they have a number they have to make on the back end, right? That constraint, you know, will spill over into the result, right? And so, like, you know, my people know I don't need to make anything off this, right? I have clothes out. I don't need to make a dime off of them, right? Like, my career, I pay for myself, and you know, with that kind of freedom, you know, comes purity, right? Like you know, if there's an artist that, you know, that hits me like, hey, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that. I don't have to think about, you know, what that means to my dollar or, you know, my bottom line or, you know, or my platform, because I'm about knowledge. I could put 1,000 artists on. Why? Because I'm not, you know, my affiliation doesn't have anything to do with one particular thing. It's about the overall, you know, knowledge, you know, art, you know, humanity, right? And so these things are things that are like universal, where, you know, that's just what this thing is about.
So, you know, talking about culture and, you know, giving back to the community, let's talk about some things that are going on in our country today. You know, it seems like every week there's some kind of scandal or some kind of outrage about something.
Let's take a break before that. Yeah.
We're about to get too real. So We'll be back in a few minutes. Multifarious Man podcast, a BK thing called Beloved. And we're going to get into some real talk about some real events. So we'll be back in 5 minutes.
I gotta dap up some people.
Listening.
Your mom did the same thing as well, so I guess she's got the feedback.
It's like what I'm doing is just listening to it's about 30 seconds behind, so I'm just actually sounds pretty good, and because of the direct mics, you can't really hear them in it, which is perfect. So the sound
is subtle background, but like white noise.
Yeah, but the volume's good. I tried a different setup today. I used my recorder as an interface instead of recording through here to stream to the live. Try something new every time.
Yeah, I put the sock on to kind of keep some of the outer noise out the same.
You're listening to the Multifarious Man podcast live here at D&G Deli Grill at 233 East Bay Street, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes, so please stay tuned. 1 minute back to live. 1 minute back to live. This is the Multifarious man. When we start up again, we're actually going to be getting in a little bit of current events. So, not sure if that's for everybody, but stick around. We'll be right back.
I don't know. It's about to go probably turn event.
Benefits of me being short.
All good, man.
Ready?
Yeah. No, is there another link?
No, it's the same
Same
one.
one?
I
All
kept
right,
it going
good.
because it.
You keep.
All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Multifarious Man podcast with a BK thing called Beloved. It's the Renaissance Saturday morning edition, live at D&G Grill at 233 East Bay Street, Jacksonville, Florida. So in the previous segment, we were talking about, nobody gives a damn about your birthday and how that was given out for free. So now let's kind of talk about what's going on in some current events. There's a big issue going on right now in Virginia, and what I find surprising. So the governor of Virginia, there's old photos of him in blackface, which initially said it was him, then he said it wasn't, but then he admitted to putting on makeup, I guess the way he explained it, to imitate Michael Jackson.
Right.
I guess the big question is, why is this still happening today, and why are people still so either A, surprised to hear that it's going on, and then B, those that it's coming out of it, they're kind of dismissive about it. Like, what's the big deal? Like, that's the part I don't get, where people don't really understand why it's a big deal and why it's offensive.
Because, the thing is, and this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, right? Where if you, if you have grown up in a silo, or if you haven't been exposed to or experienced racism, right? Then you don't understand a lot of the nuances of racism, right? Shout out Luke. But that's the thing. So what's happening when you say the so what behind it, right? That kind of attitude comes off of typically people who haven't been educated or wanted to be educated on America's racial historic background. And so if you look at like the Gucci thing, right? It's like the headline that I saw that I kept seeing repeated in news and media was that it resembles blackface. If you look at the word, if you look at the way those words run together, that it resembles, right? So resembles means that it's not, right? Right? When they say that it resembles blackface, they what they're really saying is it's not blackface, or you shouldn't think that it's blackface, right? And so that wordplay, if you catch on to that, right, gives you that so what kind of response, where they feel like, okay, this looks similar, but so what? That was 70 years ago, that was 100 years ago, that was true. Whatever it is that they want to tell themselves in their mind. And by they, I mean people who don't understand the significance of of that kind of caricature, that we've undergone. And so a lot of that comes from just people who just aren't educated and aren't educated on the topic, and or don't want to be.
Well, what do you think is the right answer? I mean, here's something. I mean, granted, this took place in the early to mid '80s, but do you chalk it up as the foolishness of youth, or the fact that this was a medical school, or do you say, wait a minute, you're being dismissive of a group of people and thinking them as less than,
but
thinking them as less than.
That culture is there though. The important thing to me is not about not so much about now are you okay with denouncing it, or now are you gonna denounce it. The importance is more so in the fact that this type of stuff is still going on today, right? That attitude, right? We live in Sawgrass, right? My daughter will tell me about classmates, using the N-word, right? Things that are culturally, it just shows a lack of understanding, right, in a culture, right? And so if that type of stuff is still going on, or it's lackadaisical on, we can say this, or we can, it's no big deal, right? Then 50 years from now, you'll see a picture of somebody now at a party in blackface in 2070, right? And then we're going to be saying, oh, well, what was going on there? No, it's a culture, right?
So is it the fault of the people that do it, that brush it off, or is it their friends, their family members that claim to be enlightened but don't check them on it, don't call them on it, and allow it, and it's, the way I see it is a lot of people feel, well, if it doesn't impact me, I really don't care. And, unless now it's moving the needle, with their constituency or their poll numbers. It seems like that's the only thing that actually drives change, and not actually, is this right or is this wrong? What's the morality behind it? It seems that poll numbers are more relevant than I need to come out and say, you know what, this shouldn't even happen, instead of waiting to hear if somebody else is upset. Like
the thing is, it's an awareness. It's more about awareness, right? If you are aware that your culture, whatever culture you're in, right, is not the only, is not the primary thing, right? There's stuff going on in everybody's culture, right? And you need to understand that yours is equal, right? Whatever I'm used to is equal, right? Like we're out here chilling. It's Teddy Pendergrass on, right? Like I'm like this is my culture. Another person's culture is totally different and is equal in relevance, right? And so if we don't take that approach with just understanding that different things are okay, and that there's no one on top of the other, and then you let your kids be exposed to all of that. Like when I'm with my kids, like letting them know, they'll come back to me on asking about particular trends or things they heard, right? And my message is always to allow them to flourish in different settings. Okay? There's people that are used to a certain thing, and by people I don't mean a certain color, right? I mean that there's certain cultures, whether it be socio-economical or whatever, that are used to a certain set of things, right? And so exposure is just key. A lot of people aren't exposed, and so these racial blackface and all these other things will keep popping up. just due to people not being exposed or encouraged to be exposed to a certain culture. Like, that's what it means. That's what it basically means. Like, you should, as a parent, you need to encourage your kids to be exposed to other cultures.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's like to stop seeing people as other. It's okay for people to be different, but at the end of the day, we're the same in the sense that family is important. Children are important. Living in a nice neighborhood where you can feel safe, where your kids can go to a quality school. These are things that are universal. Having access to to knowledge, to education, to the necessities, the basic things that you need in life. You drop someone anywhere in the world, they're going to be wanting the same thing. I mean, think about how people react when someone takes out a picture of kids or grandkids. You don't even have to speak the language. You know that, and
those are their people. They love them.
Yeah, and it just comes down to that. I just think it's odd that in some things that we see each other as the same, but it's almost like in the smaller groups, or if you're in a group of friends, a diverse group of friends, if that's what you have, it's like we're fine with treating each other the same, but it's almost like when you get out into mob speak, and that's when you lose that, and it's almost like people are afraid to. You can keep self. You can what makes you different, and be able to move in different rooms and appreciate different things that people have to offer.
Right.
I mean, imagine what music would sound like if it was just coming from one place, if it didn't have influences from everywhere.
Right.
Country music wouldn't be any good if it didn't have influences from R&B, from rock. Rock wouldn't be where it is. Think about it. It's bland. It's like having a soup with no flavor.
Right.
If you don't have that flavor, that cultural flavor, and then that's the part I don't get, where there's a group of people, or the people that are afraid of that. It's like you're not going to lose yourself.
The thing is, they like the flavor if it's entertainment, right? Or if it's such, if we're showing a new dance or something, or we got something that's popping, right? A new dance, new song, whatever, it's that's welcome, right? But the other side of that is, do you really understand the people, or do you just understand the fad or the entertainment? Like, do you understand the culture, right? And so, a lot of times that disconnect between, you take the entertainment as a consumer, right? And you like that cultural exchange, but the personal exchange of being people, you don't take that part. And when there's that disconnect, you get the Eric Garner, right? You get somebody choked out for cigarettes, when if you understood the culture, those type of matters wouldn't even happen, right? Because the thing is, that's one of the good things that in who I am, right? I have my grandfather's name. One of the good things, about we're in the projects or whatever, right? And it's like you had a kid that was coming up then, right? Could be walking up the street and see somebody that looked like them, that meant success, meant substantive success, right? And it inspired, and it had an element of encouraging, that you don't have now, because the representation isn't there every day. Even with myself, like, we're out in Ponte Vedra, right? And it's like, but one of the reasons I did the Beloved page was because that can be like a remote, easy way for a lot of people, right? Like in my day-to-day, we may not come into interaction as much. You know, I got 1 million kids. No, I have 4 beautiful children, but in doing what I have to do for career and for the family and stuff, my time isn't, you know, my time to volunteer wasn't where I wanted it, right? And so, like, the Beloved page is meant to just disseminate, you know, disseminate knowledge and information so that a person anywhere, you know, not just this city, can look at useful articles or things that'll help them get through the day, and, you know, maybe spark interest, you know, for things that'll help them be propelled in their own life, right? But one of the key reasons why my hair is like it is, right, and like why I just, you know, why I roll a certain way, and, you know.
Yeah, if you don't know, Beeman's hair could have its own podcast and own website and comic series.
That's the thing. But the reason, one of the reasons why it, you know, we do, you know, why I roll how I do, right, is because
how he was impacted and his push for prison reform. Where do you think that's going? Where do you think it's do you think it's taking the right path? I mean, I know First Act is really it's only at the federal level now, but, you know, it's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think that the you know, I'm proud of the rap community, right? Like the leaders and what I call the leaders in the community, right? So the Kendricks, the J. Coles, right? Jay is like the you know, Godfather, right? But all of these people are taking more, you know, they're taking their place in a broader kind of self-preservation as a community, right? Like, and that's important. You know, if you look, Jay stepped in on 21 Savage, right? He, you know, he got detained and possibly deported. Jay-Z stepped in, gave him his legal team, right?
So this is 21 Savage, who, you know, I mean, from what we knew originally was you know, Atlanta rapper, and during Super Bowl week, I think even after he was supposed to perform, he was detained by ICE. So there's a question now of, you know, his status and what the next steps are going to be. But it was important what you were saying, where Jay-Z stepped in, you know, to make sure that he had legal representation.
Right. And so things like that, where, you know, the hip hop community is doing a good job in pushing, in helping one another, but also, if you look at the Meek Mill thing, like, even in pushing legislation the ways that it needs to go, right? And so that's a thing that definitely I'm happy, you know, to see.
Let's kind of talk about that. I mean, that situation, I think, is a prime example of why you need reform. So, you know, in his own words, you know, yeah, he got into trouble when he was younger, but it was over a decade ago. But because of the way the laws are on the books, and that's what it always comes down to. It's not just, you know, criminal justice, but it's what laws are out there, how they're being enforced. So now, all these years later, because he still had probation, now suddenly a traffic violation was enough,
right,
to send him to prison.
Right.
Mind you, he had been, you know, he had been doing all the right things for years. He was a young man that did turn his life around. He used his talent to build a career. He wasn't out there running the streets.
Right.
You know, he was, you know, something very simple and silly, where sometimes people have to look at, all right, yes, that's what the law is, that's what's on the books, but it's the old thing, the spirit of the law versus the word of the law. And I think when you know, human beings are involved in the system, but too often they take that part of it out and go, no, what it says is this. I mean, if you think about it, just because something's legal doesn't mean it's moral.
Right.
Doesn't mean it makes sense.
Right.
So when people fall back on and go, hey, it's the law, you got to follow the law, there's got to be more to it.
Yeah, but that part comes into what you said when you said, like, does this person look, can I see myself in this person, right? And so when that compassion is not in the equation, or not even compassion, sometimes it's very simple as, can I see myself, a piece of myself in this person? When you take that out of the equation, you get, this misjustice, right? Malpractice of the law, right? That's what they call it.
Yeah, it's, they claim justice is blind, but people aren't. And when you do take that compassion, when you truly see a person and don't think they can be reformed, of course you're not going to care, because you don't have to live with it. You don't have to see it. It doesn't impact your community. But if we remember at the end of the day, there are no differences in that sense. Everyone should have the same rights and be seen as redeemable.
Right.
There are no lost causes.
Right.
It shouldn't just be, well, sorry, you broke this infraction, whether that law made any sense or not. Well, you're going to go to jail, but I think you over here, I think you have a future, so I'm just going to give you a pass or give you. So it's like, and for anyone that's listening, it's never my intent to say if someone breaks a law or commits a crime, I'm not saying that they should not they should just get a pass, period. What I'm saying is the laws should be applied equally. If a law is on the books or even sentencing is done a certain way, it should be equal. Two people doing the same thing, they should suffer the same consequences. So if one person is not, that's where it's a problem. So
right.
You never want to hear anyone say, oh, I just want lawlessness. That's never what it's been about.
Right.
It's about, the fairness of it.
Right.
Give me another chance.
And the thing is, like, if you take a real high level macro of it, like, if you don't educate enough of the population and you throw them in jail as a country, where are you 100 years out? Right? So at some point, you got to look at, the macro of it and say, okay, if we have such and such percent on opioids, and then we have such and such percent, in jail, what is that a recipe for, right? Like, so that's the thing. Like, if you don't, sometimes if you don't lift up at that level and look at it like that, you won't see really what the chess.
I mean, I agree. It comes down to the same thing. It's like you can have the tallest, strongest building in the world, but if you don't have a foundation, and that's it, the people in the communities are the foundation. And if you don't build up that foundation, I don't care how pretty it looks, I don't care how much steel it uses, it'll fall, it'll collapse.
Right.
And we have to get back to putting into the foundation,
right?
Tending to the soil.
And that's what this is about. That's what Beloved's about, right? That's why, the movement is what it is. It's because, it's at the end of the day, it's about the people, right? And so, like, we have a duty, and I say we, really it's everyone, right? Has a duty to educate and to lift, brothers, sisters, everybody, right? And so if we see the church isn't stepping in, like, that's one of my things, right? Like, really, a church should be doing more of this stuff, right? Like, that's what I believe, right? And so if the church ends up becoming about business, or more about bottom line, or more about we'll give you this goodness in the community, but you have to believe what we believe, right? If it becomes about a trade-off of taking young kids off the street, but only if they do such and such. If they're a part of my, this particular activity, and then they, if it becomes more about a trade-off and money instead of just giving freely, loving freely, right? Then that's part of the problem, right? Like, kids should have to, after school, right? If we have so many churches in the city, after school, right? Like, there should be an opening of all of this stuff, all of these resources that various churches have, so that these kids can, hang out somewhere, do something productive, even if you put a basketball court, outside, right? Like, more of that needs to happen, and that's not happening.
Well, I see this two ways, and I hear your point. So the church's role in the community is, first and foremost, and I'm just talking from Christian faith, Baptist churches. First and foremost, their role is to save souls. Like, that's their primary thing. So.
But what do you call saving souls?
But let me, I'm just talking about accepting Jesus Christ as your Savior. That side of it, that's the soul. Now, that doesn't mean not being part of the community. That doesn't mean, like you're saying, giving to the community. But all I could say is for that is a church that only gives to the community and doesn't do the other thing. Because I think what you were saying was we're offering you this, but we're not going to give you this. And it shouldn't be. And if that's the view, and I think that maybe is a problem. A lot of people view a church as a binary thing. You can do one thing. And for my church, the way we see it is you're supposed to give to the community. You're supposed to pour into it. You're supposed to look out for the children. You're supposed to give to the, feed the homeless. You're supposed to do community things. It just has to be together. Not saying I'm not going to give you help unless you believe this thing, because I can't think of any church that does that. And if they do, that's a problem. It's just getting back to the basics of saying, yes, I am giving to my community, but at the same time, I'm still gonna, give you the message. I'm still gonna tell you these things.
Right.
It's like I can feed you and give you Jesus Christ at the same time.
What I'm saying is that the first step of, when you say saving souls, right? The first step of that is, what's the overall message of Christ, right? It's love, right? So love is, before I ask you, do you believe in something, I'm supposed to show you love first.
We agree 100% on that.
And so if you are, if you are only opening your display of love to me under the condition of, you're.
I hear what you're saying.
Right. If it's under the condition of,
I do hear what you're saying, and I think that's and I'm not even going to say it's a misconception, because there are a lot of organizations that do operate that way, where it's, if you're not going to listen to what I have to say, I'm not going to feed you. I'm not going to, that's a pulpit of hate. And that definitely is a problem. What I'm saying is, if you're just giving to the community, but you're not sticking to, Jesus's, wants you to spread the gospel, if you don't do both, then you're just another Salvation Army. Right. But it's okay, but you're right. But you still have to be out in the community. It's not conditional, and that's your point. It should never be conditional. It should be about love first.
Right.
Love the weakest
and
among
then if they receive this message that I'm going to give them during the love, after the love, in the love, if that love is always there, then you shouldn't have to attach it to a condition.
No, you're right. It's
right?
not conditional.
You know who I am because of the way I walk.
Yes.
You don't, don't need to know.
Your walk should match.
Right.
I mean, and that's, one of the things we learn, and, and I truly believe is your walk should match. If you're a Christian, your walk should match that of Jesus Christ, who is to love everyone. Love your neighbor. Love the person you hate. And that's not, love is not a feeling. It's a commandment.
Right.
It's regardless of how you feel,
Right.
you're supposed to do it. You know, when I'm giving you something, when I'm giving you a hand up, you're right. It shouldn't be, I'm not going to give you this unless you say you believe. No,
Right.
It's not that. I'm going to give it to you regardless, but I'm also going to tell you this. And if you take that with you
Right.
and you do something with it, then great.
Right.
And if you're not, I'm not going to shut the door on you. But you're right. You know, the way society sees churches these days is they see the business side of it. And
But
not
even
thinking about,
but you have to, so you can't blame it on society sees.
the church is made up from sight, and that's kind of
Okay.
my point.
Right.
Is the church, and that's where I'm getting it. It's like a lot of times people are like, oh, that church this, that church that. But just like any family, any organization, it's made up of the people. The church is just a building, but the congregation is the people. So any problems that we bring from the world, being disorganized, not being sincere, not loving our neighbors, you'll find that anywhere.
Right.
So the key is to, you know, the problem is, and this happens in the church all the time, people get church hurt because of the real world things that happen.
Right.
But if we get back to the basics and being impactful about our commitment to the community,
Right.
you can do both. It's like it's not a zero-sum game. You actually can do it, and you're right. More of that should happen.
Right.
But
Right.
again,
But why are you and I sitting in here doing something, you know, on our own funds, out of our own, you know, out of our own love, right? Like, there's organizations that have more money, you know, have bigger microphones, right? And they could set up and they can do this just like we did, right? But
absolutely.
but they didn't.
no, you're absolutely right, and that
So
that
that
definitely
speaks.
is that, and that speaks. You know, people's actions. People can say whatever they want, but it's their actions that speak volumes. And if they're not putting their money where their mouth is, or putting their bodies where their mouth is, it's not going to matter.
Right.
And that's where we end up with. But you're right.
And the thing is, like, even when we were gonna do this, like, I reached out to, like, everybody I know that, you know, is doing their stuff, right? Their businesses. I said, hey, you can come out, you can do your, you know, whatever it is, because I'm not, you know, this isn't about money for me. Like, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, the movement, right? And so the thing is, you know, that said, you know, the community can take it for what it is, right? So, you know, there's a lot of support in the room. Thanks, everybody, you know, everybody that came out, both sides, you know, both sides of the building, because we have the DJ on the other end. But, you know, this is about love. The movement's called Beloved. You know, it's about standing tall, knowing you're beloved.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the lighter side of, you know, the movement, of the culture. We will be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just 2 minutes. Back in 2 minutes. So I hope everyone out there that's been listening has enjoyed the show so far. This is the first actual time that the Multifarious Man podcast has been broadcast live. So I'd be interested to hear what people have to say. Let me know what you think about it. And, you know, we're definitely going to do it again. We also have, you know, an email address. You can send me any comments at multifarious.man.podcast@gmail.com. And hopefully next time out, we'll actually have the live chat function via Facebook. So definitely check us out. Let us know what you thought about today's show. And to get more information about Beloved and a BK thing.
you know, of life, right? Because you could be in your bed now, and you can be, you know, thinking that things are popping, right? Just because your news feed is popping, but really you haven't got out of bed. Like, that's the reality is your news feed is popping, but you haven't got out of bed. So just think about that, and like, is like what's being done right there?
So this is people that they're more concerned with likes and favorites, and they're not part of the world. They're looking at it remotely.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's, you know, it has its benefits, right? Because you don't you know, you don't have to be at the scene to know the scene, right? But then you lose a lot of that value add, right? You don't know how to interact with people. You don't know how to spark a conversation. You don't know how to you know, just how to build on you know, your personal skills. So, and those are needed for, you know, making money, for everything, right? And so, like, what would you like a you know, would you like a person who never went out and experienced the world to have any authority over you? So would you like a boss that never went anywhere? Would you like a policeman that just judged you off of his news feed?
Nah, I mean, I think it's like someone can explain to me in a million words what heat feels like or what cold feels like, but until you're actually out there, what does wind chill mean to me if I've never felt it?
Right.
You know, sitting behind that screen, you know, where it's a weird, you know, the way the world is now. We're so connected, but we're so disconnected. I mean, if you look up, people are having dinner together, and every one of them is buried in a phone. We're not communicating.
Right.
You know, that gets lost in the message. As much information is available out there, what are you going to do with it if you don't have any connection to it? If you're not touching it.
Right. Right. And I think that's what, you know, that's part of the downside is, you know, there's not that connection and interaction, and I think you're seeing that bleed over into, you know, the way society is moving, right? So, you know, there's a loss of the genuine contact, right? Like, people want to come out or get together, but there has to be a purpose for that, right? But what happened to the, you know, the jewels in random interaction, right? If you're walking up the street right now, right, and you bump into somebody or you spark a conversation. We were here last week. A guy just, you know, came, sat up, started talking to us, right? Like, that sporadic conversation, right? You need to have some of that, right? And it can't be behind a keyboard. So
I think things like this, the Beloved movement, you know, getting out into the community again, having events where people can interact, makes a difference.
Right. That's why, like, another reason, even the location, like, why it is the way it is, because, like, I don't want you to come here thinking you know, it's a good backdrop to look fly at, right? Which is, you know, the typical thing going on is people want to go somewhere to be seen rather than to go somewhere where they can grow or to interact, to be able to grow, right? Like, you know, you get dressed up, you roll out, you only talk to those you know. you take pictures, and then at the next morning, right? What did you learn?
Yeah. There's no growth
Or
from
what,
it.
what value was there to that, right?
Yeah, there's
you come back and you have your picture to show you were there. But if I asked, people in this room, what was a more constructive hour or 2 or 3, then this beats, going out to be seen every time. And so that's why I want to rock out as much as we can, because it's not about you being seen, it's about the conversations that are happening outside of me and you talking.
Yeah,
this ain't even it. This ain't even the main thing. Like,
yeah,
the main
substance.
thing, is what's going on outside of this.
Yeah, I think it's image. What was the ad campaign in the 80s, 90s? It all rose together. Image is everything. Image is not everything. It's the substance of it. It's the message. It's the actual growth. If people aren't communicating, interacting, if the connections, the ideas that are sparked, you don't spark an idea from the selfie. It's the conversations that are happening on the other side of that phone.
Right.
That in real life part of it.
Right.
And that's what we have to push. And I think what this does is it gives people an opportunity to say, hey, here's something I can do. I don't have to put on airs. I can come as I am and just, hey, we have something in common. Oh, hey, I remember that song. Or, hey, that topic that you guys were talking about. Man, I was just talking about that something with somebody the other day.
Right.
But now you're expanding your circle. And like you said, when we came out here last week, that organic growth doesn't happen unless you're out and doing something like this where people feel like you're approachable. Because think about it, if we were somewhere and we were wearing linen and all sharp, it's gonna drive people away. People aren't gonna want to come up and just have a conversation.
And I do those things. That's the thing.
But there's a time and place for everything.
Right. And so that's the thing. That was the main reason on the location and the timing and all of that, the hour, right, is because I want to make a distinction from the finesse vibe, which I can do, we can do, versus the, substantive, the knowledge wave, right? And so, everybody here is having a good time, and they didn't have to worry about a click, right, or somebody not smiling at them or shaking their hand, right, or feeling like less than, or I want to take all of that vibe, all of that tribal type stuff, and have something where you're interacting, and where all of the finesse, we could put that down and we could pick that up when we roll out the night, or when you do whatever you're doing, but put the finesse down for here, and let's talk about things that matter, right? Let's talk about how a circus is going on in the White House, right? Every day there's something to pull you out of thinking about yourself. Every day there's something going on in the White House that takes your mind out of your own game, where you got to deal with something. You got a boss going, to deal with. You got a coworker to deal with. You got to get money. You have things that you need to be doing, and there's a circus to distract you from that on your news feed, on CNN, on all these different ones, to take you out of your own game. And what people don't understand is you can vote for whoever you want to, and I vote Democratic, all the time, right? Cool, that's my thing, right? But I also play the game for myself. My vote isn't gonna help, my vote didn't get me and my family where we are. right? That was me, right? That was the grind. And so the thing is, like, you know, the distraction that goes on gets people involved in a lot of causes that take themselves away from their own incentives and their own personal goals, right? And so that's why Beloved, like, the Beloved movement is about you going for self, right? It's self-knowledge. You go for yours, right? Like, this ain't about nothing but you soaking up knowledge so that you can better your own self. Like, and that's why, you know, that's why we vibe how we do. Like, that's why you don't see a lot of posts on that page towards any candidate or whatever, because really they're making six figures. What are you doing?
Yeah, right? it's the age old of, you know, if your life or your career is you driving down the highway in a car, you're supposed to stay focused to get from point A to point B. But the noise, the internet, the news, you know,
Trump
it's the
is
same thing.
Like, the thing is, like, that was gonna happen, and is gonna happen until the next election, right? So you can be focused on, from the time he got into impeaching him, you can put your energy in that wave, or you could say, "Oh, this happened. Let me read some books. Let me do something. Let me make something that I can make a play with in a year."
Yeah, it's the difference between taking a situation and making lemonade, or just wallowing in it, and you're stuck on why you think something is negative or why you feel a certain way about something, instead of saying, okay, so-and-so happened. How does this impact me? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? What do I need to put back out there, other than yelling at this and telling people how much you hate them and how much you dislike what they're doing? I'm like, okay, fine. Now what are you for? Stop telling me about what you're against. I know what you're against. Tell me about what you're for.
Not even telling you what they're for. Like, what do you do for yourself?
But
that
I mean,
shows what
but
you're for.
That's what I mean. It's
right.
Taking that. It's like people can tell me all day about why they hate something, but tell me about what's important to you.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna do with your life to make your world better?
Right.
And it can't be just yelling at, eventually it just sounds like noise.
Right.
And
Because it's gotta be cool to, and that's another aspect of it. It's like, like we have to make what is cool become knowledge and going for self. Because right now what's cool is, I don't like what happened in the White House, so let me get behind this candidate, or let me share a Nancy Pelosi meme. Oh, Queen of Shade, all of this stuff. Cool, but what's going on in your own life? Like, what are you doing to get you to the next step? Because all of these other people, they can make policy to make your life and our lives easier or harder. But at the end of the day, if you grind, you can overcome all of that. Like, it don't matter what policy is out. Like, if you grind hard enough, you can get through, period.
Yeah, I think so many times people are focusing on what they perceive as the problem and not enough time thinking about, all right, so what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do to get to the next place or the next level? It's like,
right.
Sit back and complain all day. Complaints don't do anything. You got to get up and put in the work. And being mad because of what someone else did or what someone else didn't do, or that person sitting next to you voted a certain way, so what? That was their choice.
Right. And then you can voice, your concerns, or you're mad about such and such. But also do something. Like, play both. Play both. Don't play one lane. Don't play the I'm mad about this and then you don't progress yourself. That's what I want to encourage people to do. That's why my posts and all of this stuff, the page, all of that is every day I'm motivating my own self to get up and get out. Like, this is shit I got to do for myself, right? So if I have to do it for myself, and I know that it works, right? And I'm going off of my own career. I started out at the bottom. And if I did these things to motivate myself and then it propelled me in a certain way, why would I not share that with other people? And so that's what, we keep coming back to it, but that's what this whole thing is about.
So at the end of the day, if you had one takeaway to give to people that are listening, about anything we talked about today or what you want them to think for the next step, what would it be?
For the next step, I would say, just take a step back from how you're currently seeing things, right? Because you we've all been programmed to a degree to where we're taught to check the news feed. We're taught to go about things in a certain way in order to attain, whether it be popularity, fame. We're conditioned to do things a certain way. So, the first thing to really do in order to get back to self is to just take a step back and understand that your current perspective, right, needs to be reassessed. And this doesn't matter if you're seeing things the right way or the wrong way. Just take a step back and reassess, right? It's always good to reassess. And so that's what I would say. I'm not trying to push anybody a certain way. I just want to encourage people to take a step back, to reassess, what really matters, and what goals they have, right? And then from there, read things, take things in to understand your true core, right? Because based upon what we were talking about at the beginning of this, seen, heard, or read, your perception is only based upon what you've seen, heard, or read, right? And so if you've seen, heard, and read a lot of garbage through whoever's fault, no fault of your own or whatever, then your perception and your perspective of things is built on that.
Nah, man, I like it. I mean, knowledge is key. Critical thinking is key. People need to get out of those silos. Stop just listening to the voices that are repeating what you want to hear. You need to be well-rounded. You need to, read for pleasure, read for knowledge, nonfiction, fiction, read your history, study your local history. A lot of times people don't even pay attention to local history. If you want to complain about the government, learn how it works, read about it. The opportunities out there. And I think, that's one thing that Multifarious Man Podcast and BK Beloved, that we have that in common. And I think it's a positive thing. It's needed. And I'm definitely looking forward to doing more things like this to give back and share. Now, I want to thank, BK and a BK thing called Beloved. I want to thank D&G Grill. I want to thank So Scenic Photography, DJ John Lucas, and all the people, our family, our wives that, continue to support us, our children that support us, and everyone that came out today.
And definitely to everyone that came out today, it was something different, right? And it's early. So that's definitely all love to those who came out. Great reception on people understanding what the movement is about. So, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone again. This has been a Multifarious Man Podcast production. Thank you everyone that's listening live, and the replay will be available. Check your links. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you. We're out of here.